Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I'm going to wrap up my series on lyrics, analysing John, George and Paul. I think this is going to be the last in my series. I'm going to cover John's post-Beatle work and then we can get back to other topics. Apologies for those of you who are waiting for the next Bob Dylan review or something other than this, but I thought I'd just finish it while my mind's on the subject. I found it quite an interesting topic to explore, if for no other reason than it's got me back into listening to some of the tracks and reappraising them in some cases. So the thing about John's post-Beatle career is the lyrics are very honest, and he's rarely talking about, third-party things. He's mainly talking about himself, his love for Yoko, his views on politics, his views on humanity. And for that reason, I find it very honest and moving in many cases. The first, more or less the first solo song he came up with was a song expressing his withdrawal from heroin, Cold Turkey, and that probably got his most traumatic lyric out of any of his songs, Beatle or solo. And just very spellbinding. Temperature's rising, fever is high, can't see no future, can't see no sky. My feet are so heavy, so is my head. I wish I was a baby, I wish I was dead. Cold turkey has got me on the run. Body is aching, goose pimple bone. Can't see no body, leave me alone. My eyes are wide open, can't get to sleep. One thing I'm sure of, I'm in at the deep freeze. Cold turkey has got me on the run. 36 hours rolling in pain, praying to someone free me again. Oh, I'll be a good boy, please make me well. I'll promise you anything, get me out of this hell. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And people saying I need a thesaurus because I keep on using the same word, so I'll try and use a few different adjectives during this review. It's probably not surprising that the Beatles rejected that as a potential single, because the subject matter was quite controversial. But it would have been interesting, as with a lot of what ifs, if they had recorded it. I'm now going to mention in the same soul-bearing fashion on Walton Bridges, he was on pretty good form in the middle eight. Hatred and jealousy, gonna be the death of me. I guess I knew it right from the start. Sing out about love and peace. Don't want to see the red raw meat, the green-eyed goddamn straight from your heart. Walton Bridges was a kind of latter-day version of Plastic Ono Band, not quite so brutal in its imagery, in its lyrics, but pretty near on the same level for me. This is my sheet music for Plastic Ono Band, which, if you notice, has a cheap cover, just a picture of a tree. They couldn't afford the photo. So we're looking forward, obviously, to the upcoming 50th anniversary edition coming out shortly. And even before that comes out, I've found myself going back and I listen to all the anthology outtakes of this album and listen to bits of the album as well. And I think this is probably his most compelling work, certainly lyrically. And in the Rolling Stone interview with Jan Wenner, Jan Wenner says, "Let me ask again, are you pleased with the new album? I think it's the best I've ever done, best thing I've ever done. I think it's realistic and it's true to me. That has been developing over the years, from In My Life, I'm a Loser, Help, Strawberry Fields. They're all personal records. I always wrote about me when I could. I didn't really enjoy writing third-person songs about people who lived in concrete flats and things like that. I like first-person music, but because of my hang-ups and many other things, I would only now and then specifically write about me. Now I write all about me, and that's why I like it. It's me and nobody else, so I like it." Jan Wenner, there is a thing, basically the honesty of it. Just, it's real. It's about me, and I don't know about anything else, really. The only true songs I ever wrote were Help and Strawberry Fields. I can name a few. I can't think of them offhand, that I always considered my best songs. They were the ones I really wrote from experience and not projecting myself into a situation and writing a nice story about it, which I always found phony. I'd find occasion to do it because I'd have to produce so much work or because I'd be so hung up I couldn't even think about myself. And then Jan Wenner says, for instance, on this album there's practically no imagery. John says, no, because there was none in my head. There were no hallucinations. There were no newspaper taxis, asks Jan Wenner. Then I was writing conscious poetry, and that's self-conscious poetry. Actually, that's Paul's line. But the poetry on this album is superior to anything I've done because it's not self-conscious in that way. I had least trouble writing the songs of all time. And then Yoko adds, there's no bullshit. So it's interesting in this book to see just how much he does like, well, obviously artists normally like the album they've just come up with. But I think Lennon's particularly proud of this work because he knew when he'd made an outstanding piece of work. And he even said in 1980, even if it takes 20 or 30 years, I think people will come to realize this album, The Plastic Ono Band, as a bit of a classic. When he was asked to analyze how well his solo career had gone, that was his first response, I think, pointing to this album. And songs like Mother, just heartbreaking songs because he went into primal therapy with Arthur Janov, and so he bared his soul about the losing his mother when he was a teenager. Mother, you had me, but I never had you. I wanted you, you didn't want me, so I just got to tell you goodbye, goodbye. Father, you left me, but I never left you. I needed you, you didn't need me, so I just got to tell you goodbye. And then it finishes, Mama, don't go, Daddy, come home. It's not that easy to listen to, but extremely powerful. And then all the way through this album, you've just got really moving lyrics. Just a boy in this is from Isolation, just a boy and a little girl trying to change the whole wide world. Isolation. The world is just a little town, everybody's trying to put us down. Isolation. We're afraid of everyone, afraid of the sun. Isolation. The sun will never disappear, but the world may not have many years. Isolation. People say we got it made, don't they know we're so afraid? Isolation. We're afraid to be alone. Everybody's got to have a home. Isolation. Extremely effective, married to the melody, and John's somewhat inventive piano playing. He just learnt to play the piano around this album, although he had played piano on the night before and I'm the Walrus and a couple of Beatles tunes. He'd learnt a few more chords here and he was using it quite intelligently. And Love is possibly amongst his most beautiful love songs ever written. Really simple words, goes gloriously with the melody. And then whilst we're on this album, we might as well cover God. Where he's writing about his fellow Beatles. He's addressing the song to his fellow Beatles and his views on, rejecting most religion and leaders, political leaders I don't believe in. He has a whole litany of things he doesn't believe in. And then culminating, I don't believe in Beatles. I just believe in me, Yoko and me, and that's reality. The dream is over, what can I say? The dream is over yesterday. I was the dream weaver, but now I'm reborn. I was the walrus, but now I'm John. And so, dear friends, you just have to carry on. The dream is over. Yeah, it's tough to listen to in some respects because one mourns the Beatles split, but on the other hand, one had Plastic Ono Band and All Things Must Pass coming out within months of the split, so it wasn't all bad. A lot of Lennon's solo songs are obviously devoted to Yoko. I think the most successful one is the one on this album, Double Fantasy, which was Woman. There's a couple of songs about Yoko on this album, but Woman has a really nice tune and a really good word, quite a mature lyric. Lennon called it a mature version of Girl from Rubber Soul, which was about the imaginary girl. Well, this was about Yoko, and it was devoted to Yoko, but to all women as well. Woman, I can hardly express my mixed emotions at my thoughtlessness. After all, I'm forever in your debt. And woman, I will try to express my inner feelings and thankfulness for showing me the meaning of success. Woman, I know you understand the little child inside the man. Please remember my life is in your hands. And woman, hold me close to your heart, however distant. Don't keep us apart. After all, it is written in the stars. Woman, please let me explain. I never meant to cause you sorrow or pain. So let me tell you again and again and again, I love you. I think that's my favourite Lennon love song, along with Love, those two. So we got other songs to Yoko which are perhaps not so successful lyrically, such as Dear Yoko and Oh Yoko. We got Bless You from Walton Bridges, which is quite interesting, but I'm not going to read it out. Now we've got this political period, sometime in New York City, which a lot of people say, okay, this was Lennon's weak point, particularly lyrically, because he's writing newspaper-type songs and he's writing about political events which would make the music dated within a few years. Well, in some ways it does make it dated, but in other ways, as one reviewer on one of my recent videos said, it's a fascinating historical document about, you know, what the leftist movement was up to in the early 70s, particularly in the United States, but also in Britain, because it refers to the Troubles in Northern Ireland. And I think Sunday Bloody Sunday is a particularly good example of this, because it was a pretty atrocious event where British soldiers shot 13 demonstrators, killed them basically, and without much provocation. So both Lennon and McCartney came out against that action by the British government, and Lennon's song, it says here, Lennon, oh no, February 72, so I'm guessing it was written in February, but the album didn't come out till later in the year. Well, it was Sunday Bloody Sunday, when they shot the people there. The cries of 13 martyrs filled the free dairy air. Is there anyone amongst you dare to blame it on the kids? Not a soldier boy was bleeding when they nailed the coffin lids. Some of the other verses are a little bit controversial, and The Luck of the Irish is a very controversial song, but it's probably worth reading out because Lennon's roots were pretty closely tied to Ireland, because Liverpool was often called the capital of Ireland, so Republican sympathies were pretty strong in Liverpool, and John and Paul expressed them in song. And even if one doesn't agree with the lyrical message, it's still a valid viewpoint. If you had the luck of the Irish, you'd be sorry and wish you were dead. If you had the luck of the Irish, you'd wish you was English instead. 1,000 years of torture and hunger drove the people away from their land. A land full of beauty and wonder was raped by the British Brigands. God damn, God damn. In the pool they told us the story, how the English divided the land, of the pain, the death and the glory, the poets of old Ireland. And then the last verse, probably the most controversial. Why the hell are the English there anyway, as they kill with God on their side? Blame it all on the kids and the IRA, as the bastards commit genocide. Aye, aye, genocide. I think Lennon regretted that last verse perhaps later on, particularly in the light of what the IRA got up to in the later 70s. But I don't know. I mean, I think he was pleased to see this album when David Sheff showed it to him, and so he wasn't saying it was a disaster, but he did suffer commercially from that album and took a while to recover. The Mind Games album, which came next, has some good words, not least the title track, which was probably welcomed by a lot of fans as return to the kind of subject matter which they were used to and liked hearing from Lennon, as opposed to the political activism. We're playing those mind games together, pushing the barriers, planting seeds, playing the mind gorilla, chanting the mantra, peace on earth. We've all been playing those mind games forever. Some kind of druid dude, lifting the veil, doing the mind gorilla. Some call it magic, the search for the grail. Love is the answer, and you know that for sure. Love is a flower, you've got to let it grow. And a good use of humour on this album, Mind Games, which was not too apparent in Lennon's solo work. Tended to take himself quite seriously. A bit of humour in Crippled Inside from Imagine, but a lot of humour in Tight As, the second track, which is one of my favourite. Just as tight as you can make it, hard and slow ain't hard enough. Just as tight as you can shake it, girl, get it on and do your stuff. Tight as you can get it, tight as got it made. Uptight's alright, but if you can't stand the heat, you better get back in the shade. I love that song. Free to People at the end. It's probably the only political song on Mind Games, but a very effective song, Anti-Nixon, around about the time of Watergate, beginning of Watergate. We don't care what flag you're waving. We don't even want to know your name. We don't care where you're from or where you're going. All we know is that you came. You're making all our decisions. We have just one request of you, that while you're thinking things over, here's something you just better do. Free to people now. Do it, do it, do it now. And then the last verse, we understand your paranoia, but we don't want to play your game. You think you're cool and know what you're doing. 666 is your name. So while you're jerking off each other, you better bear this thought in mind. Your time is up, you better know it. Or maybe you don't read the signs. I think it's great. And then, sorry, I missed out the last bit. Well, you were caught with your hands in the kill, and you still got to swallow your pill, and as you slip on, you slide down the hill on the blood of the people you kill. Stop the killing now. Do it, do it, do it now. It's a really underrated track from this album, in my opinion. I'm sure you're familiar with it, most of you watching. So what else do we talk about? Well, obviously we had the track aimed at Paul on Imagine, which obviously is a pretty cruel character assassination, but as lyrics go, if one just analyses the lyrics, they're strong lines, and Sean Lennon always said he loved this song, and he put his foot in it when he met Paul McCartney after John's death, a few years after John's death, like 10 years or something, and he said to Paul, I know you're probably upset with How Do You Sleep, but don't you think it's a brilliant track? And he said he possibly regretted saying that to Paul, and Paul was very nice to him about it, didn't bite his head off or anything. A pretty face may last a year or two, but pretty soon we'll see what you can do. The sound you make is music to my ears. You must have learnt something in all those years. I've just noticed that the verse about, from this booklet, the verse about yesterday and another day is missing, which is strange. The only thing you've done was yesterday, and since you've gone, just another day. Oh no, it's here, sorry. You live with straights who tell you you was king. Jump when your mama tell you anything. The only thing you've done was yesterday, and since you've gone, you're just another day. Well, Paul took that literally in saying, well, he knows damn well yesterday wasn't the only song I wrote, but obviously Lennon was speaking generally about, the only thing you've done was yesterday, as in the Beatles, rather than your recent solo effort, which he didn't care for, and he didn't care for Paul's first album either. What else have we got? He's covered religion, as I said, in God. There's a track not released in his lifetime called Serve Yourself, which is hilarious put down of various religions. Although he points out to David Sheff in the Playboy interviews that he's not anti-religion, and he came pretty close to becoming very religious at certain times in his life. But in general, he's quite cynical about that side of things. There's some also great tracks about humanity. I'm just going to read you a couple of lines from You Are Here from Mind Games. East is east and west is west, the twain shall meet. East is west and west is east, let it be complete. He's always looking for people to come together, and I guess there's no better example of that than in the song Imagine, which has got a timeless lyric. People criticise him for coming out with words about imagine no possessions when he's a multimillionaire, but I think that's nitpicking a little bit, because possessions can be in the mind as well as physical. And it's funny that my father-in-law here in Hungary, he can't speak any English, hardly, and he imagines one of his all-time favourite songs, and he hasn't a clue what the words mean. In fact, it was pointed out to him the other day that the words were quite left-wing, shall we say, and he was quite a bit shocked because he's not a left-wing guy. But anyway, I thought that was worth noting, that a lot of people connect Imagine song with the words, but there's a load of people around the world who just listen to the tune and think that's beautiful and don't really know to this day what he's talking about, although some people have taken the trouble to translate it, obviously. But that song, you know, it's particularly the second verse, I think. Imagine there's no countries isn't hard to do, nothing to kill or die for, no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. And the last verse, imagine all the people sharing all the world. I think it's going to go down with all those Beatles tracks as being remembered on a par with the Beatles tracks, along with, I'm hoping, the best of the solo work, but one never knows. What else have I not mentioned? I didn't mention Give Me Some Truth, which is a free-flowing, glorious attack on politicians. And yes, he did come up with the word hypocritic, I think, because if you look up in the dictionary, the word hypocrite exists, the word critic exists, but not the word hypocritic, I don't think. And he was basically talking about the critics in the music press who slagged him off one minute and were praising him the next, probably. I'm sick and tired of hearing things from uptight, short-sighted, narrow-minded hypocritics. All I want is the truth, just give me some truth. I've had enough of reading things by neurotic, psychotic, pig-headed politicians. All I want is the truth, just give me some truth. No short-haired, yellow-bellied son of tricky dickies gonna mother hard but soft soap me with just a pocket full of hope. Money for dope, money for rope. I'm sick to death of seeing things from tight-lipped, condescending mummy's little chauvinists. All I want is the truth, just give me some truth. I've had enough of watching scenes with schizophrenic, egocentric, paranoid prima donnas. All I want is the truth, just give me some truth. I'm sick to death of hearing things from uptight, short-sighted, narrow-minded hypocritics. Yeah, he's repeating himself at the end there. And one of his best songs, lyrically and musically. So that was just a taster of some of Lennon's solo work. There's plenty of other stuff to be discovered out there. I didn't nearly cover everything, obviously, for time reasons, but I would say I prefer his lyrics to McCartney's after the Beatles. But it was interesting when I did this series covering the Beatle period, I think Paul's lyrics were on a par with John's, so that was interesting because I hadn't really thought that before. I'd always assumed Lennon was superior, but if you look at some of Paul's Beatle period lyrics, they're every bit as inventive as good and as good as John's. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, if I had to vote who's the best lyricist out of the Beatles, it would be Lennon. That's not to say he's my favourite Beatle musically, because he's not. Don't really have a favourite Beatle overall. Well, personality-wise, it would probably be Lennon. Lyrically, it would be Lennon. But otherwise, I rank them more or less equally, John, Paul and George at least. So that was my video on John Lennon's lyrics post-Beatles. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.